Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to begin. First, I want to introduce myself. I'm Michael Downs. I'm the Chief of Staff to the Mayor, and I'm also the town's Communications Director. And I want to introduce the folks that we have up here in front. We have Mayor Laura Hoydick, Fire Chief Robert McGrath, Fire Marshal Brian Lampert, Police Chief Joe McNeil, Town Risk Manager Ronald Eng, Public Safety Director Larry Ciccarelli, EMS Deputy Director Kevin Giasulu, Health Department Director Andrea Boissevane, Public Works Director Mo McCarthy, and State Fire Marshal Paul McCook. And I also want to acknowledge in the audience we have State Senator Kevin Kelly, Representative Joe Gresco, and Representative Phil Young. So what we're going to do first is we're going to hear from Mayor Laura Hoydick, then we'll hear from the Stratford Fire Chief Bob McGrath, and then we'll hear from Fire Marshal Brian Lampert. And at that time, we'll take questions from the media. I would ask that those in the media, when asking a question, identify themselves and the media they represent. And then if members of the public have questions after that, we'll be happy to take those once the media portion is concluded. And those who want to contact us with additional questions can reach us at mayor@townofstratford.com. With that, I'll turn it over to Stratford Mayor Laura Hoydick.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for being here today. One more introduction. We are lucky in Stratford to have our dispatch supervisor, who is also the state representative from Monroe and Newtown, and he's here today as well, J.P. Straczynski. So thank you for coming today to learn more about the facts of the fire at Shakespeare Theater. I'd like to begin by saying that the theater and building and grounds mean a great deal to many, not just Stratford residents, but those affected who have attended events, plays, concerts, gatherings, and fairs at the historic building on Elm Street. For many, the theater has been part of our lives as it was erected before many of us were born. As the daughter of parents who met because of music and theater, performing art has always been a significant part of my life, and as it is the fabric of our community in Stratford. As I met residents yesterday with tears streaming, we grieved our loss. I was humbled by the emotions and the passion of the belief of the value and the significance of not just the theater building, but theater and performing arts in general and what it means to our community. This loss was not just ours at Stratford, it was also the loss for the world, as we are one of the few remaining theaters in the world. And many of our organizations have been built around what the activities at that theater. I mean, I see my friends from Sister Cities Chorus, our ambassadors to the world, the other Stratfords. Thank you for being here. Many of you may not know that the original founders of Square One Theater had worked at the Shakespeare Theater. And when the theater closed, they created their small theater group, which is still, thank for the grace of God, blessing Stratford today with performances. I think we have one scheduled for next month if anybody's interested in going. To all that have reached out to support the town's next steps, and it's come local and from a national level, I'd like to thank you. As we progress through this tragedy, we will work together as a community to review our hopes, our wishes, and our next steps. I would like to thank our first responders, Chief Robert McGrath, Police Chief Joe McNeil, EMS Director Mike Louise, and Public Safety Director Larry Ciccarelli for their call to service to Stratford. I would also like to thank the cities of Bridgeport and Milford, who helped us extinguish the fire, and the cities of Shelton and Milford and Trumbull, who covered our community as the fire was blazing. At this time, I will introduce Fire Chief Bob McGrath. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. As been reported, the first call for the fire at the Shakespeare Theater came in approximately at 0049, which was actually 10 minutes to 1 Sunday morning. Upon arrival of the first 2 units, they found heavy fire throughout the structure and called immediately for help from the entire Stratford Fire Department complement, in addition to our mutual aid partners in Milford and Bridgeport. And we also had Fairfield Fire Department covering the town in addition to Shelton. The firefighters worked extensively to put the fire out, try to get it under control, but when we first arrived, it was just about completely involved with fire. So At that point, we tried to do the best of what we could do. There were other flying brands from the fire that was setting some of the additional trees and so forth on fire, and they had to control that also, so they did a great job. And that's, I guess we're here to take questions if anyone has any.
I think we'll have Brian speak, and then
Brian,
we'll take questions.
yeah.
Is that okay, Chief?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. This is our Deputy Chief and Fire Marshal, Brian Lampart.
Good afternoon, Brian Lampart. I'm the Fire Marshal, Town of Stratford. The Stratford Fire Marshal Office has taken the lead as far as the investigation for this fire. At this point, we're going to treat it just like any other fire that we investigate. It's a science, so we're going to take our time. We're going to do it carefully. I've reached out to the Connecticut State Police for their assistance in this matter, just so we don't miss anything. It's early in the investigation. This is a very complex fire because of the size of it. It's not unusual to see a fire load in that building like this because it's basically one big room. So it's going to be a little bit complex to get to the seat of it. So be patient with us. We're going to do everything we can, and hopefully we come up with some sort of answers. With that, if there's any questions to us, we're here to answer.
Can we ask the question now?
I think we're ready.
Oh, from the, you guys there who lived there with the fire?
Yeah, we're going to take media questions first, and then we'll talk, okay? So you're more than welcome.
Mayor, Justin Shepherd, NBC Connecticut. We know this is very fresh, but will this open new discussions on what might happen with that property in the future?
Yes.
Have you given any thoughts? What would you like to see?
Well, I've always had thoughts of what I'd like to see. Oh, I'm sorry. I've always had thoughts about what I'd like to see because, as I mentioned before, theater, music, performing art is very important, and it's part of our history there. So I'm not exactly sure in what venue I would like to see that happen, but that's me personally. It's really a decision for the residents of Stratford as well as the town council.
And correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, the property, if it had been transferred back from the state to the town, it is town-owned land at this point, Mayor?
It is. It is town-owned land.
Are there restrictions what can actually happen to that land now, given the transaction back?
There are restrictions, and if I stumble, I'm going to ask Senator Kevin Kelly, who helped craft that deed or interpret the deed. Where are you, Kevin? You're someplace here. Okay. Portion is to remain in open space, and a portion, and the ability for the town or the public to have access to it is in the deed. And Kevin, do you want to come talk about the other parts of it?
Sure. Back in 2005, when I was town attorney, the town received the parcel from the state of Connecticut. It was the Department of Environmental Protection in approval with the Office of Policy Management. And predominantly the deed restrictions, if you will, would limit it to not only open space, but also recreation and entertainment purposes. Oh. Yeah,
Just happen to have a copy.
and it states that the town will reserve in perpetuity no less than 20% of the property as open space with regards to regulated wetlands. The open space areas, consisting of certain parcels. Prior to any new construction or expansion of the existing buildings, the town will survey the premises and notify the state where those would be designated. In addition, they will also maintain the property is accessible for the general public for their enjoyment in perpetuity. And I believe there is other information in here with regards to passive recreation and entertainment.
Regarding the future of the property, it has been vacant for quite a while, several years, decades. Was the town in support of reopening it, and if so, how were you able to make that happen, or will it be able to make it happen more easily now that the fire has happened? I don't know, if there were any roadblocks before.
I think our lack of a cohesive vision, let me say it that way, was the roadblock. There were many who were impassioned about what should happen there, and there were many that had individual efforts. The town had gone out for RFP or RFQ several times, but never had we effectively executed an agreement with a developer or an operator. So. Brian, would you?
Yes, the building is almost 100% covered with sprinkler protection, and that is definitely something that we're going to be looking at. I'm not aware of that.
We're just,
We're taking media questions first, and I just want to take questions after.
right, but she deferred to after. She was waiting till after. Thank you. Okay, well, anybody else have a?
Excuse me, my name is Tony Jersey from Box 61. Was there power to the building and at this point in time, was there active power?
There was active power to the building, yes, and that's something we're also looking at. So far, we don't see any evidence of electrical problem with the feed of the electricity.
Was there anything with regard to fire accelerants that you can talk about at this time?
We have found none at this point. Again, it's early. We're still in the beginning stages of our investigation. This could go on for a week or more.
Could you talk to how the extensive damage there might impede or slow down the investigative process?
Well, that's the complex part of it. There's so much damage that there's a systematic way of us investigating a fire, so we have to start eliminating sections. And we do have a fairly early video of the fire from the firefighters when they arrived, which gives us a good idea of a location of what we're looking at.
And Mayor, have there been any issues, given this has been pretty much dormant for so many years, any issues with any squatters or homeless people who could have had access to the property? Is that something you've seen in the past before this happened this weekend? People getting the property?
Thank you for that question. Yes, there have been issues, but I'm going to defer to the police chief, Joe McNeil, on exactly how frequent that happened and what the course of action was after it was identified.
Yeah, Chief Joe McNeil. Yes, there was a couple over the last year or so. One we moved to a facility in Westport, but I have not had any reports recently that there were any homeless people squatting there.
Any vandalism?
Yes, there was repeated vandalism there. Yes, there was some copper being stolen there. And they were opening the front doors and going in, most like just throwing things around and messing the place up. But there was no evidence of anybody living there at the time.
It's hard to see you behind the lights, yes.
Mark Suno, East Palm County. I think this is for Brian, maybe. Was there any kind of heat or space heaters used in the building to keep it warm and all?
We do have have one heater that we're looking at. There appears to be no damage to it, so I think we're going to rule that out pretty quick. So that's the one heater that we know of. There is no evidence to support that at this time.
Steve from DoingLocal.com. Can you expand upon that, about the sprinkler system? There was a working sprinkler system in there and it didn't function, or can you expand upon that? And that, would put the fire out, how that work?
It's a good question. There is a sprinkler system there. Whether or not it activated, I don't know that yet. We have to trace the lines back to the original source of the sprinkler system. That would help us in our investigation. Sprinkler systems, depending on the year that they were installed, some were designed to control fire, some were designed to just help people get out of a building. So we would have to research how that system was designed and what the intent of that particular system was for.
Was there an alarm as well? I mean, did you get a call from a neighbor, or was it somebody coming from the building?
The calls came in via 911, so there was no active fire alarm.
Mayor, when was the last performance at the theater?
88, I believe, was the, '89, thank you. 89 was the last performance. But on the grounds, there have been performances, and there's been active groups that have utilized sometimes the lobby area or the grounds for performances.
Do you know, like, the last time the building was checked to see if it was secured, or is there a list of people that you're aware of that had access to it, that you're talking to, or know, like, when the last time it was checked to see if it was locked up?
Mo, our Public Works Director, Maurice McCarthy.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Do you know, like, when the last time the building was checked to see if it was secure, or is there a list of people that had access to it that you're talking to now?
Typically, my department handles any access issues. We do inspect it. We do send staff to check the buildings on occasion. Not in a regular routine, but we do check. And we have been at the building within the past week for some forcible entry issues. No one made entry that we know of, but there was loose doors, not open doors. So about a week before that fire. No, we didn't see any. And when a person responds to check something like that, they do check in the building. We saw nothing at that time.
Is the building insured?
Yes.
Who's the insurer, and is the town the beneficiary? Do you know any of the details of the policy?
So we filed the claim with the broker who is in contact with the carrier who has not come on site yet. So I'm going to withhold information at this point in time, but it is insured, and they have been notified. No, because there's, okay, I'm going to go back into my early days about insurance coverage, and there's different kinds of coverage that we have, and there's different aspects. There's 4 properties on the 4 buildings on the property that are insured, and the percentage of insurance that we carry on it. So I would rather give you all that information when it's absolutely correct instead of me guessing.
And have you made any estimate of either the cleanup cost or the fire, police, and EMS overtime to this point?
We haven't made any estimate yet, but we are keeping track of all of it for not only our internal audit, but when we submit a claim.
For clarification, when you were talking about the restrictions, does that restrict it to the same type of venue for entertainment, or can it be sold to a developer or something like that? Just trying to understand the layman's terms.
Again, I'm going to refer to our senator, but it says in perpetuity, so I'm guessing that means forever. And there is, if you can read this, because I can't read it, the print is very small about what it says about entertainment and the intent of the quitclaim deed by the state to Stratford.
Yes, what it indicates that the town shall make reasonable efforts to utilize the premises for public entertainment purposes, including but not limited to its historic use as a theater. I don't believe under the deed they can sell to a developer without consent of the state of Connecticut.
I'm lucky you're here. Just one second, Mark, and then you.
Two questions for Brian. Is there any plans to release any of the 911 audio?
Not at this point. It's still an active investigation. I'm sure at some point you can request that.
And obviously, this is going to be a lengthy investigation. Any guesstimate as to when you might have a conclusion?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Brian, same thing. Joe Torres, WPC. Sorry for such an iconic loss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We weren't out there for 10 minutes before we bumped into some longtime locals who have their suspicions about the cause of the fire. Not because they're professional investigators like you, but simply based on the facts that this is a building that has stood vacant for decades, that went up in the dead of night in an
Well, everybody likes to jump to that conclusion based on that. You know, it's a vacant building, it's in the middle of the night. And that would be a valid question, you know. But you have to remember, we have a job to do, and we're going to eliminate everything before we get to that point.
But again, to reiterate, at this point, so far, you have found absolutely no evidence of arson.
Correct.
Given the size of the fire, was there any immediate danger to any like neighboring properties?
Repeat that question, please?
Was there any danger while fighting the fire of it spreading either through like burning embers?
Well, there were some burning embers. We had another group of engines or firefighters doing what we called ember patrol. They were putting out some embers. There was some damage to the marsh area. There was some wildlife, not wildlife, but some growth that was burning, a couple of trees. Luckily, the wind kept it away from the boatyard across the street, so there was no damage done over there.
Anybody else from the media?
None to report, really. Years back, we had a little brush fire up against the building. Nothing on the inside that I can recall. I've been in the town for over 30 years, so the answer, I guess, to that would be no.
Has the K-9 already been through the rooms yet, the state K-9?
No, the K-9 was requested. The K-9 walked the property, and there were no hits on that. But again, we haven't really gotten to the meat and potatoes of the investigation yet, so that is something on our list.
The dog will hopefully get a chance to get out.
That's our goal, yes.
Is the structure like stable enough for you to get into all the parts you need to get into, or are you still knocking down walls?
It is not stable at this moment. Now, we're working in sections. The contractor that's on site is working with us, so if we tell him we want to work systematically towards something, that's exactly what he's doing. He's moving product in piles, separating it as we request. So yeah, it's going to be taking some time.
And you said from the video from the early people who got there, you got an idea of where it might have begun. Could you divulge that yet? Or?
Pictures are priceless. So when somebody shows us a picture or a video of a fire in a certain area, that draws our attention. There's no damage to one side of the building, but there's a heavy involvement on another. So that's where we're going to concentrate at this time.
Did you say which side it was?
It was the stage area. And that's a big area, so. I'm sorry?
That's the area with the least?
No, that's where the most fire was showing initially. And that's a big area. The stage area is a big area.
Brian, are there any regulations either locally or at the state level that would mandate that a building of that size and that capacity not only have sprinklers, but ensure that those sprinklers are working?
That is correct. So if that was to be built today, the standards are very strict, so to speak. So the system would have to be designed specifically for the use.
Okay, but that doesn't answer the question. Were there, as of this moment, regulations that mandated whenever it was built, that the sprinkler system in the building, A, needed to be checked periodically to be sure that it was in fact working?
Yes.
There were.
To answer your question, yes, there are regulations to follow.
Therefore, do you know when was the last time that inspection was done to see when in fact those sprinklers?
I don't have the dates, but the town has been responsible for checking that system on an annual basis.
So you don't know at all?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Correct. I don't know.
But you know that it's required that it doesn't need to be checked?
Correct.
Brian, the forecast of heavy snow later in the week, you have to take special measures to protect the season?
By the time the snow comes, I think we'll be okay. We'll have, if we have an area of concern, we'll protect that area. So I think we'll be okay by the end of the week.
Folks, that's the 9th District Councilman Bill O'Brien who's just asking that question. Yes, Steve?
Was there any hazardous materials on scene, and do any residents or firefighters have anything to be concerned about being exposed to during the fire?
We don't believe there's anything in the building. So we haven't seen anything yet. To our knowledge, there's nothing in there. So, that I'm sure there's some sort of asbestos, but
So
I'm
I do know
not.
that answer to that. So Steve, when the previous council and this council had the subcommittee do the feasibility study with Marvel Architects to secure the building, mothball it, whatever the term du jour is, there was a curtain that was removed, and in that contained asbestos. So that was removed, and if the fire was originated at the stage area, there was no asbestos hanging from that point forward.
Can you just outline the process in general of what will happen now to determine what happens on the property? Is it within the town council's purview, or are you going to talk about that tonight?
So,
In terms of the further development,
so Ethan asked about the process. So the first step in the process is the investigation. And we don't know how long that will take. And then we will keep the town council apprised of everything that is found out. And they will be the ultimate decision maker on how to move forward. Of course, I'm just going to preface that with everything that we do, we always have community involvement, as we've seen with the Center School property. So.
Brian, would you be able to find out this afternoon for us when the last time the sprinkler system was inspected?
I will definitely look into that. Yes.
Media? Media? I'm sorry, sir. Are you media? Are you from the media, sir? Okay. Could you just? We have a few other people who are in line as soon as the media is finished with their questions. Okay, great. All right. Let's start with. Heidi,
For my last point,
I'm sorry. Go,
no, my last
please
point
continue.
is that I just, for over the last 13 years I've lived there, I have called repeatedly to the police department, whoever would listen, to tell them, you never kept the park lights on. For whatever reason, year after year, you left it, especially in the winter, in total darkness. You wouldn't even turn on the lights. I called. Teenagers in the back, arguments with couples, drunkenness, lewdness. I mean, back in the 90s, there was even the dead homeless person down there. It's really distressing that you wouldn't even leave for the money that we pay to live in that neighborhood, the park lights on. That park was in total darkness. My husband was there with my son on his electric scooter. Saturday afternoon, everything was locked up tight and shuttered. We spent, as a neighborhood, collectively going into that park and looking for anything that wasn't covered up or protected. This past spring, I called the costume shop, gift store. Somebody had taken out all the boards down. I called, I said, I want this board replaced. The police officer who happened to live in Norwalk said, you know, this place should just be torn down. It's a wreck. At least he called the public works that came out and they boarded it up. But we really, as taxpayers, spent a lot of time taking care and watching Shakespeare Theater, going in there, picking up the garbage. But not having lights on that park and leaving us in total darkness was unacceptable by the town. And I really think it's unfair.
So Heidi, thank you for coming today. And thank you for talking. Thank you. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for, I understand. Thank you for coming. And I'm sorry about the fear that you experienced because it was horrific. And Heidi, Heidi, may I finish? May I finish? Thank you. So I totally agree, and that's why you're here, and that's why you're speaking. And your comments will be incorporated into an after-action review that we will have about this, because your points are very valid. It is scary, especially when you don't know what's happening, and it is very dark there. But we will take your comments, and we will incorporate those and improve going forward. So I thank you for that. Thank you. Paula? I cannot. Can you?
The internal security system consisted of door contacts that went to a panel, an alarm panel. No, they're on the inside. No, there were no cameras on the property. There are no cameras on the property. The security system was simply a burglar alarm system that consisted of door contacts on each door in the facility.
But there were no security cameras.
No, ma'am.
And is there a reason for that?
Funding, probably. But there are a lot of places in town we need security cameras. The funds aren't available constantly.
Stratford are not the Shakespeare Theater.
I'm sorry?
And it's not the Shakespeare Theater we're talking about right now. We are talking about the Shakespeare Theater, but you're not. You're going beyond that. I'm talking about the Shakespeare Theater specifically.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that there's no security cameras on the property, and the lighting, as my neighbor was saying, is not good. So, I mean,
That's correct.
do you think that's appropriate, or was it appropriate?
I don't have an opinion. Obviously, we like to improve conditions all over town, but you have to set priorities. Excuse me?
I'm just speaking about the Shakespeare Theater right now.
I think I answered the question. There were no cameras on the property.
You have a question?
Yes, the walk along over here over the last year and a half, was the fire alarm system drained to keep it from freezing?
Can you clarify that a little bit?
Right, you're walk along and pumping up the property to make it ready for use if we got a good bid on it. One of the things that must have been done then, because there was no heating system left other than a small isolated heating system here and there, was the entire fire system drained so there was no water in it?
The system is a dry system. That's what it's called. It's a design, by design. So there's water to a sprinkler room. And if it's called to go elsewhere, so in other words, if there's a fire at the other end of the building, it would pop a sprinkler head, air would come out and be refilled with water. That's how that system works.
One other question, I guess, from the fire department also. What was the first engine on the scene? I understand the fire was reported at about 11 minutes, 12:01.
The first due engine on the scene was engine 1 from downtown, and they were there within 3 to 5 minutes after the original call.
I have a witness who was watching it and reported he was one of the 911 callers. They called him very early and had to clarify when they said theater, that it was the Shakespeare Theater rather than something else. And he was watching and saw no fire department there. He said over 20 minutes. He said police were there early, but they circled the theater. Another police car showed up for a while. And then he said it was quite a while before the first fire engine arrived. So I'm surprised to hear that. Thank you.
Well, that may have been, maybe there wasn't any phone calls within the first 20 minutes, but I highly doubt that because we have all of that. We're looking into the actual calls when the call came in for the fire.
This was a 911
Yeah.
call to the person. He was a witness on the other side. So
That's all part of the investigation at this time. Thank you.
Joe? I spoke to the first responder, so you can talk about the timing. It wasn't 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 20 minutes. I know we're getting a lot of information, a lot of people are saying things right now, but let's find out what happened first. It's gonna take time. We gotta work together. That's you and us to figure out what happened. That is, get information. I have a lot of information flowing in. There's a lot of theories out there. I mean, someone actually said it was something to do with the government shutdown. So we just need to get to the facts, let us work, let us get it done and figure out what happened here. This is no time to start pointing fingers and blame everybody for something. Let's just find out what happened. If someone did it, let's hold them accountable. But right now, we don't have any information this was arson. Right now, we just don't know. And God forbid somebody's in there. We just don't know. So let us work, and we'll get all the timelines out. You'll see it. It'll be full and transparent. And there was not a 20-minute response time. I'll tell you right now. Okay?
So we have our EMS dispatcher, which is not Larry, but Larry will speak to you now.
I have a timeline of the information provided via 911 and then arrival of assets on the scene. There were multiple calls provided through dispatch from 0049 hours to 0052 hours. 5 911 callers regarding the fire. The initial units from headquarters were dispatched at 0051. Initial police units were dispatched at 0051. Units responded to the scene, fire units, at 0053. So at most, between 0049, which was the initial call, to 0053, which is the first unit on the scene for fire, was a total of 4 minutes.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, I just have a point of clarification. Somebody asked when the last full-fledged performance was. 1989 was the year that they tried to redevelop it. Louis Burke submitted a plan, RFP, which was approved, and I believe in 2005, he had a performance by the Hartford Symphony, a 50-piece symphony orchestra, and Christopher Plummer came down and did selections from Henry V to a 1,500 sold-out house. That was the last. And then there were readings after that in the theater that he had scheduled.
Thank you, Bruce. Debbie?
So I was just going to comment on what Mr. Hirsch said, because Michael actually was part of that performance. There was a kids' academy at the time, and our young ones were learning to act and tumble and do all kinds of things to be the fairies or whatever in Midsummer Night's Dream. So, I mean, I'm kind of disappointed that that history doesn't seem to be current. So I had a question, though. What was the first time that you actually were on the scene, Mayor? Was it the next morning?
When,
I mean, I was sleeping too, so I'm not being critical.
1:30 that morning.
Okay.
And stayed, would you like to know the whole time that I stayed? I stayed till after 3:30 and then was back on scene between 7:30 and 8. I can't remember. I was pretty tired, which is why I look so good today.
Did your administration work all day Sunday to try to
Sure. I don't know if they look at this as a benefit or a curse, but when I'm there, they're there. so, so, so many of us were there. It was Sunday, right? Sunday morning. I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to be funny. It was so fast and furious. But many of us were there on Sunday, calling the insurance broker. Thank goodness for cell phones. I don't know how we did it before cell phones. Calling the broker about the insurance, just working through the different steps, arranging for and I'm talking globally for all of us, because somebody would arrange for the contractor who had the fence to get the big pieces of equipment to start the demolition so the investigation could be done. Our state representatives and senators were on, well, these two state representatives and this senator were on site. Several of our town council people were there as well, because it's a terrible event. It's terrible for us. So. I sure can, because it just didn't happen this November or now. We have been trying to secure funding for the theater to get it. Pardon me? Oh, so you can look at the proposed bills that we submitted for funding for the theater, to erect a black box on the theater. I did it myself along with Senator Kelly and Representative at the time Backer, and currently Representative Young, Representative McGorty, Representative Gresco, and Senator Kelly are all working on behalf of the town of Stratford to get funding for the theater. Or they were for the theater, and now we'll see what happens. Yes, Michael?
And somebody on Facebook Live wants to know, funds are already being raised by community members for rebuilding the theater. Will those efforts weigh into the decision on how to move forward with the property?
I'm sure they will. The funds that are being raised that I saw was by Katie Rooney, which was very sweet of her to do. She is the daughter of Sue and Chris Rooney, who run the Mighty Quinn Foundation.
All right.
Before you ask your question, could I just, no, before you ask your question. So normally I try to be the calm, cool, collected one, and in this situation, I couldn't be because I was emotional, and I was so thankful that they, in their professional capacity, were even, because they have to be even. They have to be professional. They have to do the best job possible, and they can't let emotion weigh into this. And so, I guess it's opinion of whether it's a deficit or a positive, and I'm very thankful. And that's how they would be, because that's their role. And many of them grew up in Stratford. And so they've had experience with Shakespeare, whether going there for a picnic or a concert or just, throwing a ball around or whatever it was, because it was, I think almost all of them are younger than me, so they've grown up with it too. So, and I'm not laughing at it, because it's serious and it's heartbreaking and it's a tragedy. And I think Larry wants to also comment to you too.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Well, we may look calm and collect in the outside, but from a personal note, I ran a Shakespeare committee project for 5 years. So my heart and soul was into trying to redevelop the project. So when I got on the scene early Sunday morning, I was aghast. I didn't even know what to say. But as all these fine ladies and gentlemen that work with me in public safety, we have a job to do. So you have to kind of put that aside in order to do the job and do the job right, to protect property when you can, to protect people from injury and worse than that. So I'm extremely emotional about this, and it's sad, but when you're a professional, you have to kind of do what you have to do, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
My big question is, I understood when I went over there yesterday that the first calls had come in from Milford. Can anyone comment on that? That's what I heard.
I don't know.
As
Not
this
true?
lady over here said, you know, she didn't see it right away, but people in Milford would see it. Can anyone comment on where the initial calls came from?
JP. This is JP Strudinsky, our dispatch supervisor. JP.
Hi, thank you for the question. They were cell phone calls, so we're not, we don't have the address. If someone called from their home number, we'd have the address. They were all cell phone callers, and we got so many so furiously that we processed the call as quickly as possible. We would have to go back and do an investigation on the automatic location information to determine where the calls were coming from. But frankly, since this is so early, we haven't done that yet, and we probably won't get that information. Just because they are reporting the fire, we want to get the fire units dispatched as quickly as possible.
So the cell phones went to 911 and then 911 tells the fire department, is that?
So yes, I manage the 911 dispatch center for the town of Stratford, and the phone calls, all the 911 calls come into the town of Stratford public safety answering point, whether you dial from your landline or a cell phone. There are times where calls go to a different town. So for example, if someone called from Milford, they would call 911. Milford police might get that phone call, and then they would transfer it to Stratford if it was a Stratford emergency. Usually no more than 3-4 seconds.
And Heidi, just one second. As an aside, so my daughter Paige, who happens to be a sophomore in college, called us before 1 o'clock saying, "Mom, the Shakespeare Theater's on fire." Meanwhile, I get a text from JP saying the Shakespeare Theater's on fire. And she was notified from her friend Connor, who lives across the street on Elm Street. So everybody was engaged within that 3, 4, 5-minute time period. So I thought our response time was pretty good, but we don't know from that first call how, when the fire started. So, but that's how we responded. Heidi?
My last one is, I bring this up because normally being facing Elm Street, we hear every siren that goes by. A lot of the neighborhood complained that they heard no sirens. Even when Milford and Trumbull came in, there were no sirens heard coming into the park. Like I said, our cul-de-sac runs adjacent to the entry, and I just want to know why was that? Why did we not hear the sirens? Because that would alert us. All my neighbors, except for us, have a dog. My new neighbor has 2 dogs. She
So,
Thank you, I have to leave, but I appreciate your time.
so Steve, would you please share with Heidi your YouTube video so you could listen to it, because on it you can hear it.
Sirens later on posted, but I'm telling you, I was up at 1 o'clock. Not one siren, I was outside
Well,
the entire
it's
night.
up to you. If you want to look at it, it's up to you. Orna?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you, can't be there and not on.
I'll make my point short. My motto in life is, if you have a crisis, don't waste it. So I think we shouldn't waste this crisis, and it's a crisis for the town. One thing that struck me as I was walking and talking to people is a certain level of mistrust. And I think asking people to express their mistrust in council meeting, I found out that council meetings are not open for the public to speak. I think in order not to waste this crisis, we should open a government, that people should be able to speak in town council, express their concerns and wishes, and feel they have a say in the running of this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Orna. Rosemary?
So I represent the Stratfords of the world, the Connecticut chapter. And I moved to an emotional high by the responses I have received personally in my role as chair of the organization from around the world. Our sister cities, especially those in Ontario and Stratford-upon-Avon, where the other two Shakespeare theaters have been for decades, successfully thriving and honoring the guard. They grieve with us, and I wanted to bring their message of grieving to you. Their condolences have been multiple, sincere, shocked, and despondent. In 2014, many of our sister cities' friends from the 5 other sister cities around the globe were here and participated on the lawn of the Shakespeare Theatre for Festival Stratford that summer, during which they enjoyed a wonderful performance. They also participated in the lobby of the theater when the Square Right players put on mini plays, the piggies, for them as part of our week-long celebration of all things Stratford. And when I think about celebrating all things Stratford, moving forward without the Shakespeare Theatre doesn't seem like much of a celebration at all. And Orna, let's hope that we can use the crisis, get where we need to be. And I ask all of you here to dig deeply in the rubble to find the truth. It is there. You have to look for it earnestly, and it will be found. And when it is found, it must be shared with all of us. The value of that building to every member of this community is immeasurable. Please, get busy. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Ethan.
Chief McGurley talked about vandalism and vacancy complaints. Could you say specifically when the last one the department received was, and how frequently you receive those?
I mean, we'll get like several over the year. I think the last one was October. Was it October or September, Mo? Do you recall? Somewhere around there. What it was, somebody came in, they pulled the wood off, and they went inside, and they took a bunch of toilet paper, and they threw it around inside. That was the last one. The vagrancy was a year before, where he was living there for at least 6 to 8 months. Well, there's always kids trying to go into the property. We had to board up the stairs because they were going up top, and they were trying to pull the wood off the doors. So we went back in and screwed it down. So, but it happens.
Can you explain why we should not
there's no reason to find it troubling. The fire investigations take a long time. Smaller fires you can do quicker. Room and content fires you can do quicker. The answers kind of jump out at you. This is a big building, so we have to, and we're going to treat it exactly like a single room and content fire, only on a larger scale. So we're taking our time. We know this is a sensitive issue to everybody, including myself. So we want to do our part and take our time.
I was just thinking that invariably you have to know that the question is going to come up. Was there sprinklers, were they working, and were they checked? And I'm just kind of surprised that that answer hadn't been articulated to.
We just haven't had the time yet. We really haven't gotten into the building yet because of the severity. Good question.
Because finding when they were checked wouldn't necessarily involve you getting into the building, the records are there. I would think.
Correct. And in fairness to me, I haven't left the scene yet, other than to go home last night to go to go to sleep and to come here.
That's why he looks like how he does. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.